Welcome back to the Just Build Baby Studios for the BuildX Podcast, where we explore everything about building better homes, smarter spaces, and the future of residential construction. I'm your host, Buzz Artiano. With me today is Brett Dugay from BD Electric. 12 years in the business. He's the owner-operator. Welcome to the show, Brett.
Thanks for having me, Buzz.
Absolutely. Tell me a little bit about yourself, where you're from, and what you do.
So I'm originally from the South Coast, born and raised in New Bedford. I come from a blue-collar family. My father was a concrete foreman on the Central Artery Project. My mother was a part-time bookkeeper for Cardo's Wine and Spirits. So I come from a background of hardworking family. I got a lot of respect for the construction industry. When I was a teenager, my father actually had an accident, and he had to, he was hurt pretty badly and had to go on disability, and we ended up having to move the family. But we got back on our feet, and he ended up opening a couple of sub shops in Middleborough.
Really?
Yep. A couple Subways.
Yeah.
So I started working there for him part-time, going to high school, and that's actually where I met my wife.
In the Subway?
At the Subway. So she was his district manager.
Okay.
And we at first we didn't really like each other that much, but over time, we grew to love each other, and I ended up relocating from Acushnet to Middleborough, where I now live with her, and we've been happily together for about 17 years. We have 3 beautiful children, and I love being a dad. So that's first and foremost about me. I love to golf. It's another thing that I do on the side, outside of raising small children. And I also run BD Electrical and Solar, which is a full-service electrical contracting firm. And we specialize in solar and battery integration, utility interconnection, and really all aspects of residential and commercial electrical.
Okay. And you started this is your company. You started from nothing.
Started from nothing. Just
in 2012, you said?
2014.
2014.
Basically
okay.
running the business out of my basement.
Right.
A couple shelves and a van. That's how I got started.
Okay. Yeah.
So, wiring houses, kitchen renovations, some light commercial, things like that, just general electrical work.
Okay. And so you started doing solar when?
I started doing solar back in 2015. So
early on.
Early on, yeah. So my first year in business was tough. Doing spec homes, and there's not a lot of meat on the bone, right? It's a very, very, very cutthroat competitive market.
Yep. And
I knew that I had to diversify if I wanted to survive and really, thrive and actually build a business.
Yep.
So, I was looking into a few different areas like the lighting controls, energy efficiency, things like that. Nothing was really sticking. I was getting into retrofitting LED, going into commercial dealerships, retrofitting their lighting to LED. And that was pretty good for a while. But then I got a call one day from a friend that I went to high school with, and he owns an electrical business, and he was getting into solar. And he needed help. He had so much work, couldn't man the projects, asked me if he would, if I'd be willing to help him out. So I said, yeah, sure, absolutely. I don't know much about solar, but, we'll pick it up. And, the following week, he sent me out on a job, and there was this crew from New Jersey that was training all of us on solar, because it's still very new. And I tell you, I fell in love with it. I loved the fact that, we were working outside. I loved the, running the conduit and installing the panels, and I just thought it was a really cool technology. And, it really tied in what my background was, which is computer information technology.
Got it.
So it really took all of that and really consolidated it. And yeah, I mean, it felt like it felt like I was doing some like meaningful work. I wasn't just wiring something up. I actually really felt like I was helping people through just taking control of like their energy costs.
Sure.
And it's interesting work. You're basically building a little power generating facility.
Sure.
On their roofs.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was really meaningful to me, and I just haven't looked back since.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And so, so that friend that you mentioned, that was someone that you had come up in the trades with?
We actually went to high school together.
Okay.
Yep. So really how I got started in electrical, it really started back in high school. And, I had studied computer information technology, and I was really, really interested in computer hardware, networking, low voltage systems. And that's where, I'd met my friend. He was actually, at the time, he was going for electrical as well.
Okay.
So, yep.
So you guys kind of came up together.
Came up together, yeah, same grade.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah. Yeah, it's good.
And this was in New Bedford Technical School?
I was Oak Colony.
Okay, so you went to Oak Colony.
I went to a colony in Rochester, yep.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah, it's a great school.
Yeah. And so beyond that, phone call basically from your friend, would you consider that like a major milestone or a turning point in your business?
Yeah, exactly. It definitely was, because I wasn't really thinking about solar. I was trying to find that niche.
Yeah.
And I think that phone call really changed the direction of my business, because ever since then I've built up a reputation.
Yeah.
Not just as an electrical contractor, but someone who really understands the ins and outs of solar.
Right. Awesome. And so that's a good lead in. So we're going to talk about everything solar today, obviously, right? And that's an incredible journey, and you should be very proud. Full disclosure, Brett's been here in the park for 7 years.
Yeah.
Ish. And obviously I've seen your company grow tremendously, and you've expanded a couple times, and now you're in a brand new space, so congratulations.
Thank you.
And obviously doing great things. So, let's dig into solar on a house. So I'm going to pretend that I'm a homeowner and I'm calling you up and I'm interested in solar, and maybe we just take me through the process from start to finish, what that looks like. So.
Sure.
I'm assuming you get most of your leads from internet marketing, or where do most of your leads come from?
Most of my leads come from referrals.
Okay.
So really referral base. I've built an excellent network of customers over the last 12 years, and they're always referring me to new business. So
Okay.
that's a big bulk.
Yeah.
We are expanding, so we're exploring different avenues like
Podcasts.
Podcast, the marketing on the internet,
Yep.
Google AdWords, the SEO, even buying leads. We're really trying to increase our pipeline.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep. Everything starts with sales, right?
That's it.
Yeah. If you don't sell anything, nothing happens. So I contact you. I'm a homeowner, residential home. We're going to talk about residential, and then we'll do some commercial, but we'll talk about residential first. So
Yep.
I call you up, Mr. and Mrs. Smith, have this house. We're thinking about doing solar. Kind of what happens next? Take me through that process.
Yeah, so the very first thing that I would do is first we have to qualify your property. We got to make sure that you're a good candidate for solar.
Okay, so when you say qualify the property, you're saying, is my house oriented correctly? There's a lot of trees over it. Do I have enough roof to make sense?
Exactly.
So you're doing that through some type of software without coming on site? You're doing that right on the
Yes.
phone with me live?
Yep, so we can do it either way. If they have the time, we'd love to just sit down, have that conversation for quick phone interview about the property, what your goals are. Are you looking to add heat pumps? Are you looking to add maybe EV in the future? So try to get a feel for what your goals are with this. Obviously, it's 9 out of 10 times to save money on their electric bill.
Okay.
But the most important thing that we do is focus on production first. I'm going to make sure that your property is a good candidate for solar. And if it's not, I'm going to tell you that it's not a good candidate for
Okay,
solar.
right away.
Right away.
Okay.
So if it is a good candidate for solar, then what I'd like to do is...
But wait, before you get to that, what makes a good candidate?
So basically, shading is huge, especially in this area.
Okay.
So
Because the amount of tree cover.
exactly. So we look at it in a radiance map. Make sure that that your roof plane gets enough solar coverage to make it worth it.
Okay. And you can do all this online right
Do
away.
it all online through some preliminary software.
Okay. So you can look it up right now. I'm on the phone with you.
Yep.
What's your address?
Yep.
You bring up the house. You say, oh, you know,
Yep.
this, that, the other thing. Your house turn, right way, wrong way.
Yep.
You know. But I mean, obviously, if they open and taken down some trees, they could improve that.
Exactly.
Right? You might say to them, hey, you've got that really big tree off to the left. It's casting a lot of shadow on your roof. Are you open to taking that down?
Yep.
Yes, no, right?
Exactly.
So that's a fluid conversation in the beginning.
Yes.
Okay.
And it's really important to have those conversations because if you're not accounting for shading in your preliminary design, your production is going to be way off.
Got it.
It's going to be way higher.
So all the financial projections won't come true.
Exactly.
Okay.
And then if we get through the process and I turn that system on, you're going to be calling me in 6 months very unhappy.
Got it.
So it's super important to qualify the lead properly.
Got it.
So yeah, we'll have that conversation. I'll pull up the property. We'll make sure that it's a good fit. And if I find that there's a lot of solar potential on your roof, from there we'll go into analyzing your bill, your electric bill.
Okay. So I need to have my electric bill available to have that conversation with you so I can say this is how many watts I'm using,
Yes.
this is my cost per kilowatt,
Yep.
this is my distribution fee, yada, yada, yada.
Exactly. So it can either be emailed directly to me or we can just talk through it. Some people don't feel comfortable sending their electric bill.
Yeah, they could read you the numbers, whatever
Yeah.
it is.
And that's totally fine. So with that data, I will size the system. So now that I know what your annual kilowatt hour usage is, I can accurately design a system that's not too big, not too small, something that's going to fit just perfectly.
Got it.
Most of the time, we can offset a utility bill.
Wait, let's explore that. So when you say offset a utility bill, what does that mean?
It means that for every kilowatt hour that you consume, we can offset it with the production of solar.
Okay. So in layman's terms, if my electric bill is $600 a month, we can make $600 worth of electricity a month.
Yes,
Okay.
exactly.
Awesome.
And in some cases, you can actually generate more than that,
Okay.
and the utility will allow you to bank those credits and use them, for a month that maybe solar production isn't as high.
Yeah. Snowy days, rainy days,
Yep.
whatever that is.
Yeah. So that process is called net metering.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. So we've had the phone call. I'm a candidate. Now what?
Now what I would do is I input all of that information into my system. I create a preliminary design and a proposal, which shows you what the cost of the system is, what components that I'm using, what the financial payback is, with a cumulative cash flow analysis. And we'll break it down, how long can you expect to get your money back? And then over the lifespan of the system, how much energy savings will it generate?
Got it. And so from phone call to seeing that proposal can be how fast?
24 to 48 hours,
Okay.
very quickly.
And you're going to also, obviously, there's financial obligations in there, so you have ability to say the system's going to cost X dollars. You're going to get this payback over time. This is how much you're saving on your electrical.
Yep.
But what do we do about financing the solar, installation?
So if you can't purchase the system outright, usually I would recommend either HELOC or working with a local bank. Cape Cod 5 or UMass 5.
Okay.
Great
So a
banks.
regular bank will loan me the money for my solar system.
Yes.
Interesting.
So these two banks that I just mentioned actually have solar-specific loan
And what were the
programs.
two banks again?
Cape Cod 5
Yep.
and UMass 5.
UMass 5.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. So
And they have programs where they're actively financing your installations.
yes.
And what percentage of the installation will they finance?
100%.
100% financing.
100%. Yep.
Interesting.
100%.
Okay.
Yep.
So I'm going to get a proposal from phone call, maximum 48 hours. It's going to say to me, this is your financial outlay. Here's your return on investment, and here's a couple phone numbers you can call. If you don't have the cash to pay for it, here's a couple phone numbers to call. And they obviously, the bank can use that proposal to say, yes, this makes sense.
Correct.
You know, you're going to save $600 a month. The payment's going to be X. Therefore, it still makes sense.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
And I lost my train of thought there. So from that initial phone call, 48 hours, we know our financial obligations. We've got a bank that can financing. Then what happens? At what point do you come on site? When do we meet?
So we'll actually meet before contract signing. So before you go for your loan, we will meet. So.
All right. So preliminary proposal.
Yep.
Hey Brett, I love what you're saying. I want to move forward. Now you book an on-site appointment.
Correct.
And then you do what? What happens on site?
So from there, I'll do a thorough site survey.
What does that look like? What does that mean?
That involves me getting on your roof.
So you're on the
flying
roof.
a drone. I used to get on the roof. I don't do that anymore.
Good. Good.
Now we're flying a drone. We're taking a 3D scan of the property.
With the drone.
With the drone, so that one, it's great for design and engineering and creating the plans. It's an accurate measurement of that roof to make sure that the design that we created is actually going to fit. But also, I'm getting in your attic. I'm looking at your rafters. I'm looking at the structure of the roof to make sure that it's going to support the load of the panels.
Okay.
Which will be sent off to an engineer for structural certification. I'm looking at your electrical panel, at your service, to make sure that we can tie in the solar.
Got it.
And we're looking at conduit paths. And I'm also setting the proper expectation with the customer, walking through the whole installation with them, where the conduits are going to go, where the disconnects are going to go, the panels, all this. We go over everything, start to finish, and we dial in all of those details.
Okay. So that site visit takes how long?
About an hour.
Okay, so you're pretty quick.
Yeah.
And then what are we doing about, so we're on site and the customer, you do fly the drone and you say, hey, it looks like your roof is at the end of its life expectancy. Now what do we do?
Super important. So we will not install solar on a roof that's older than 10 to 12 years.
Okay, so that's a prerequisite.
Correct.
To even move to that. Now, what if I've just purchased a home? I don't know how old the roof is. You're gonna kind of look at it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll go there and just have to see. We'll get on the roof. We'll have to. I'll send a roofer out there.
Okay. So you do a thorough inspection of the roof.
Yes,
in that case. If I don't know how old it is, you're going to send a qualified person to take a look at it.
That's correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what if it needs replacement? Now what do we do?
Then at a minimum, I would recommend that we replace the section that goes under the array.
Okay.
So if you can't, you already more than likely need a roof already.
Right.
But at a minimum, I would say to do at least the sections underneath the array.
Okay. So maybe it's the whole back half of the house.
Yeah.
We don't have enough money to do the whole house. We're going to wait a couple years, do the front half. But for now, we're going to pick a color that's always in stock. We're going to do the back half before the panels go on.
Yes. Yep. Because what we don't want is you calling me back in another 10 years and your roof needs to be replaced, and now you're paying thousands of dollars to remove the system and then reinstall.
Got it.
It's just, there's the right way to do things, and then there's, the typical solar sales way to do it, which we can talk about.
Right. So a typical company, they don't care about all
No.
that stuff. They're just going to jam you into those panels. They don't care if the roof will want out. They're just going to install it because they want to get their commission and move on to the next one.
That's exactly it, and that's
Right.
what's really given the industry a black eye. There's a lot of this, talk on social media about how solar is a scam, and at the end of the day, it comes down to just these companies have these bad business practices. And it's like that with any reputable contractor, right? We have this across the board in every, all trades. But it seems to be prevalent in my industry.
Yeah, well, the guys that were doing driveway sealing moved on to solar installs.
Yeah, right. And that's the thing. It's like they're knocking on your doors.
Right.
They have these high pressure sales, and they're picking. We call it panels over production, right? They're choosing to to rather than go through that thorough process that we just talked about, they just look at the roof and go, how many panels can I fit on this roof?
Right. Yeah, so they don't worry about the output. They
No.
don't worry about the rafter load. They don't worry about the age of the roof. They
Nope.
they just say to you, hey, I can fit 30 panels on your roof. Sign here. You're going to get this much back, with a big disclaimer hidden in micro print at the bottom saying, we have no idea if this is really going to work. And then you sign your life away. They have in-house financing, you know, that's, you know, zero down, no payments for 24
Right.
months, you know, all that typical, you know, high pressure, in-home sales, tin man stuff, right?
Yep.
And now they've signed up, and now they stuck with it for 30 years.
Right.
And when they go to sell the house, it's a problem and all that other stuff.
Yeah, and we really try to educate the customer to, as enticing as it may seem, zero down solar is too good to be true.
Sure.
Right? It's too good to be true. And when you have these lease or PPA models, right, power purchase agreement, you have these companies that are coming in, offering the zero down solar. Now, you're agreeing to purchase electricity from those panels for the next 25, 30 years. And, you know, like you said, this pretty much puts them in this pigeonhole, right? Where if they go to sell the home, now they have to transfer that contract. They don't own the system.
Right.
The solar company owns your roof. They own that system.
Right.
They're getting the incentives. They're getting, you know, the tax credit, the write-offs. And they're still collecting money from you at a 20% discount, 30% discount. It's not worth it.
Right.
You're better off just getting a loan, owning it outright, collecting all the incentives yourself. And that's kind of the problem in this industry.
Okay. So we've come to the house. You've come to the house. You've taken a look at it. It's a candidate. The rafters are good. The roof's good. We're ready to do the install. We go to contract. At what point does the battery system come into that conversation? Hey, I want to use solar on rainy. I want to use my solar energy on rainy days. I'm going to choose. This is the only one I know. I'm going to use a Tesla pack. I want a Tesla wall pack. When does that conversation happen?
So that's part of qualifying the lead as well. Like,
Okay.
Again, what are your goals? Do you want a battery?
What percentage of people do batteries on installs?
Well, up until recently, not a lot. I mean, you know, maybe 90 to 95% of our installs were just solar only with net
Interesting.
metering.
Okay.
Yeah, batteries. It's more, or it has been more of a like early adopter
Got it.
type market.
Yep.
You know, if you want a battery, you really want it.
Yeah.
Right.
You've made up your mind. You want one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, however, as of, you know, this year, there are these new utility laws that are coming into place, and we're actually finding ourselves using batteries as a strategy to help get that system connected to the grid through what's called curtailment.
Okay.
So you can.
So they're encouraging people now to move towards batteries so they can
Yeah.
get that off-hour power.
Yeah.
Because
So-
they have way too much power during the day now,
Yep.
and at night they're hurting for power.
Yep. Exactly.
And that's why you see, you know, off topic, that's why you see these massive batteries being installed everywhere around to suck in all that power during the day and then distribute it at night.
Exactly. Yeah. So the problem that we have in this state is we have a high peak demand problem. Everybody's using power at the same time.
Sure.
So the idea is to build these battery plants with a 4-hour capacity to help offset that,
Got it.
rather than build new gas peaker plants. And it's
Right.
easier and cheaper to deploy just batteries to kind of.
So those big batteries that I've seen, those are only good for 4 or 5 hours of production?
Yeah, that's usually what we're sizing that on.
Really?
4
And
or
how
5
long does it take them to recharge that?
So it depends on the array, but you know, usually like 6 to 8 hours. I'd
Okay.
say. Something like that. Yeah.
Okay, interesting. So if I have a Tesla pack in my house, how long would one pack run my house? I know it's depending on the load, but
Yeah. It's.
I mean, summertime, I've got my AC on. Is it like 1 hour? Is it like 4 hours?
So here's the thing about the batteries, and this is where, like, it's really important to understand what's realistic, right, with a battery versus a generator.
Sure.
And I think this is also what kind of stands me apart from the competition is because they're going to go in there and try to sell you the most batteries that they can. I'm going to tell you, you can't run your jacuzzi on these batteries, right? Like you can
Forget it then, I'm out.
Right. So what we've done is, when you have a customer that is adamant that they want their AC,
Yeah.
we'll install a battery with generator.
Okay. So you'll put a backup generator,
Yeah.
a whole house backup generator with a transfer switch, and those can work in conjunction, the battery and the generator.
Yeah. Depending on the type of generator. But
Okay.
yeah.
So you have a specific unit that is meant to run with those
Yeah.
batteries to supplement that power.
Yep. Or we can just create two separate essential load panels.
Okay,
your
so you say,
generator
okay,
runs
this is going to do all the light, the battery's going to do the lights, the fan, the bathroom fan, the outlets, and then the generator is going to do the jacuzzi and the AC.
Right. Yep. Exactly.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I did not know that.
That's the strategy that we're taking, and it works well because like the goal and what we're trying to get across, and we're trying to change the narrative on solar is, we want to build energy resiliency. We want to build energy independence, and that's going to require some kind of fossil fuel backup. That's just realistic, right? For today, we have these electrification goals, and you should definitely future-proof your house and size your service correctly and all of that. But also, realistically today, the technology doesn't support something like that, where you have your AC running, and you have all of your appliances going, and you're just living normal life.
Right.
But I mean, the same could be said about a generator. You do have to size it correctly.
Understood.
So it depends. Again, it goes back to that consumer goal. What are you looking to do? Are you looking to just save money? Are you looking to be, energy independent? Are you looking to protect yourself from outages? Like there's so many things that go into it.
Right.
And it's not really a one-size-fits-all approach.
Right. So you really need to have a deep dive discussion with the customer.
Yeah.
Saying, starting with that initial phone call, what are your goals? Does your roof support it? On-site, inspection, roof shingles, structural, how am I going to get the power? Is your panel big enough? Okay, now what do you want to run off a battery if you're thinking battery, or are you okay just being net metering, as you said,
right?
Or are you saying, no, I want to be able to have at least my lights on and my TV on, for 6 or 8 hours off my battery, and I know that, I'm going to be hot because AC can't run. Or I really want my AC, so I also want a generator.
Right.
Okay, so this is a pretty involved discussion.
Yeah, and again, it just goes back to what the goals are.
Right, so it's very important for the customer to be completely transparent with you and tell you exactly what their goals are.
Yeah.
And probably during that discussion, as you're explaining to them what's possible, that's probably pretty fluid, where they're saying, oh, I didn't know I could do that, or I didn't know that, or what does that look like? And so there's a lot of back and forth.
There is, and I think it comes down to like those early stages, it's more just about education, consulting, right? Really putting together a solution that's going to work for them and what their goals are.
Okay, right.
Something as complex as solar and building out this energy platform, it's not a 5-minute discussion in your doorway.
Yeah, so it's somewhere between 2 and 4 hours probably, that discussion or discussions.
Yeah.
To really hone in on what really needs to be done.
Yep.
Right, so people need to understand that it's not a 20-minute or 1 hour, a guy gets into your living room and he won't leave till you buy.
Exactly.
Versus working with a company like yourself.
Yep.
That's going to really care about the installation when it's done.
Yep, exactly. I mean, there was an article today in GBH about a Carver resident that got scammed, essentially, from a large national solar company. Door knocker came in, sold her way more panels than what she needed.
Yeah.
So not only is she paying for the power from the utility company on some months when she's not producing as much, but she's paying for the overage on the system.
I shouldn't laugh, it's terrible.
The system generates way too much power than what she needs, and she's on the hook to buy that power.
Really?
From the solar company.
Wow.
Yeah, there was an article right in GBH.
GBH is what?
I don't know.
Okay.
WGBH.
Oh, TV. Yeah,
TV,
Channel 2.
Yeah, it was
like an online article.
It was a news article that I read this morning about a Carver resident who was being
Carver, Massachusetts.
Carver, Massachusetts. Yep.
Yeah. Interesting. Yep. All right. So now we've done that. we worked through all the system. Okay, we want to do this, we want to do that, and now I've gotten your proposal. I've given that to, I'm just going to use Cape Cod 5. I've given that to Cape Cod 5. They've done their due diligence. They say, yes, we like this. We want to finance it. We've lined up the finance. We sign a contract with you. Now what happens? Do you pull a building permit? What does that look like?
Yeah, so from there now, we will take all of the site survey information, all that data that I collected when I was on site, and along with my design, and I send it off to get a set of construction plans and structural certification. So it'll be reviewed by an engineer,
Okay.
by a structural engineer, and he'll provide me with a structural letter, certification letter.
And he's determining your attachment points, how that's supposed to look, wind load, snow
Yes.
load,
Yep,
structure, all that.
yep,
And he's stamping those.
stamping those.
Okay, great.
Yep, saying, yes, this route, I have reviewed these plans, I've reviewed the design and the specifications, and your roof can support the weight of these panels.
Got it.
And I need that for a permit.
Okay.
So,
you use that document as part of your building
Correct.
permit process.
correct.
And is it a building permit or is it an electrical permit?
Both.
It's both.
And a fire permit,
Building, electrical, and fire.
and fire.
Interesting.
Yeah,
Okay.
there's a new fire code that went into law beginning of this year. So now they're requiring,
And that's with or without a battery.
with or without it, separate fire requirements for a battery.
Okay, so that's a whole nother conversation.
Whole nother conversation.
Okay.
Yeah, so these codes are really, they're rapidly evolving, and Massachusetts has its own set of laws as well.
Sure. Why not?
Same, yeah, same, and again. So,
Why not?
yeah,
That's a separate conversation.
and every town's different. Every town, their interpretation of the code is different.
Really?
Yes. So, because the language, like any code,
Is vague.
is vague, and it's open for interpretation.
Sure.
So how I read that code and how I interpret that code may not be what the authority having jurisdiction of that town
Right.
interprets that code as. So there's a lot of red tape that we need to get through
Okay.
before we can
So
actually get a
again,
permit.
that goes back to your reputation. So if they see your name on the application, the
Yep.
electrical inspector, he's like, oh, I know Brett. I've looked at his work. He does great work. It's probably a much different conversation than Jimmy's, International Solar coming in.
Oh, yeah.
And he's like, I don't know these guys. I don't know how they work.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, it's usually like I have a personal relationship with most of the
Sure.
towns in the building departments.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, we have a really good reputation.
Good.
So,
So now we're through our permitting process.
Mm-hmm.
Now you schedule, obviously you tell me, hey, we're coming the week of whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And what does that look like when we get on site from that moment?
well, let's back up a little bit. So while we're filing for permits, we're also submitting utility interconnection paperwork.
Ah, I forgot about that part.
So now I have to prepare an application for the utility to allow me to connect the system to their grid. And there's a bunch of restrictions, and if you're under a certain system size, then it's a different process. And
So there's a lot of back office work that the customer never sees that
Correct.
you do.
yes, exactly. And kind of back to our battery discussion, we're now seeing a lot more battery adoption strictly as a way to get around some of these interconnection rules.
Got it.
So, for example, I had a customer who was looking to expand his system. He had a 15 kW system, solar, and he wanted to add on to it. He wanted to add like another 3 kW. So we filed the application, went through the process, we filed the application with the utility. The utility kicked it back to us and said, hey, the transformer that this is connected to will not support the extra solar.
Ah,
So you got two options. One is you can pay us $4,500 and we're going to send it into a supplemental review. So we're going to get a lot more technical eyes on it and figure out, hey, what do we need to do to get this solar connected to our grid? What system modifications do we have to make? So now you're on the hook,
whether or not they approve it or not.
right? So now you're on the hook to pay for that upgrade,
Got it.
which most customers find deeply offensive because you're already getting charged very high distribution costs.
Understood.
So now the utility's saying, okay, You got to pay us $4,500 to allow us to do the supplemental review, and we're going to get back to you with what it's going to cost you to upgrade our grid.
That's
to
just the
connect
fee to
solar.
tell you how much it's going to be.
Yes.
And then there's a fee on top of that to
Correct.
upgrade the transformer.
Yep. 10, 20 grand, right?
Wow.
And they'll take that supplemental fee and they'll apply it to the balance.
Well, that's nice.
Right. So there's that. Or the other option would be to add a battery
Got it?
and curtail the power.
Got it.
So we can go that route.
So so what curtail the power means, in other words, the sun's gone down and the peak load that was on that transformer is diminished now because all the other solar panels are not producing, and your battery is now trickling power to the grid so the transformer can support that.
Well, what it means is, in this case, we were only allowed to backfeed 15 kW onto the grid.
Right.
So when the system is producing more than that,
Yep.
it's gonna charge the battery.
Got it.
And then we're going to dispatch that battery, either later on in the day or when it's fully
Okay.
charged.
So you're going to try to maintain that 15 kW output,
Correct.
right? And if you're over 15K, the excess is going to go into the battery.
Correct.
And then as you fall below 15K, the battery's going to kick in and backfeed.
Correct.
Interesting.
Yep.
And so that helps you in that. So now you don't need a permission to increase the 15 kW because you're only going to give them 15 kW
Right.
no matter what.
Right. So now it's back to a more simplified interconnection process.
Got it.
Right. So
And they're doing that. Do you think that they're doing that because they want more batteries, or just doing it because it is legitimately a transformer distribution?
we do. We have an aging infrastructure problem,
Okay.
and we're using more power. And we're looking to electrify everything, and they have all of these electrification initiatives in place.
Sure.
And who's going to pay for all of these upgrades?
Right.
So I think that, I don't know if charging the customer to pay for that transformer is the right thing to do.
I don't know. I've bought a lot of transformers over the years.
Well, it's kind of crazy because if your neighbor had solar, it's
Not
like,
solar related. I'm just saying development wise.
Yeah.
I've had to buy a lot of transformers.
Yeah.
This park I had to pay for these transformers. The
Mm-hmm.
park next door I had to pay for the transformers. So I bought a lot of transformers in my day.
yes,
Big ones.
they're not cheap.
Yeah.
They're not cheap.
Yeah.
But it's kind of interesting because you could be the last one on that circuit
and
to
you
go
get-
solar,
You get stuck with it.
and you get stuck with the bill.
Yeah.
Whereas, your neighbors went solar, there's no cost to them.
Yeah. Back in the day.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Interesting. All right. So we've got our interconnect permit. We've got our building permit. You scheduled the install. Now what?
So from there, our team will arrive.
Well, before we get to that, so we've signed the contract. Now you order the equipment, or you wait till you get the interconnection thing?
Usually we'll wait until we get interconnection.
All right. So you want to make sure you're going to be able to connect.
Yeah.
And then you order equipment.
Exactly.
Right. And right now, is there a delay in getting equipment?
Not on the residential end.
Okay.
Commercial's different, but not on the residential.
Okay. So we got our permits. You've ordered equipment.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to install you the week of whatever. Mm-hmm. And what happens day one?
Well, we'll prepare the customer prior to us showing up, because when we get there, we're on your roof, we're in your basement, and I make sure that I prepare the customer.
So there's a fairly disruptive time in there where there's a lot going on.
There is. We're on the roof, we're making loud noises, we're banging, we're drilling.
Yeah. In and out, up and down.
Up and down, exactly. So I make sure that the customer knows it's going to be loud for a few hours. If you have anybody who's sensitive to noise, you may
Yeah. They probably want to go have coffee or whatever.
Go, and we make sure that we caution tape our work areas off so that nobody's walking underneath the installation
Right,
area.
in case something slips off the roof.
Yeah. And then we get to work. The installation is fairly quick. It's about 1 to 2 days.
Okay. So an average house is 1 to 2 days.
Mm-hmm.
You're done, gone.
Gone.
And then how long before we're actually connected to the grid?
So from there, we, now again, depending on the town, but we go through an inspection process with the electrical inspector, the building inspector, the fire chief, or the fire inspector. We get all of our appropriate sign-offs. And then from there, now I can submit all of my closeout documentation to the grid, to the utility. And then from there, once they receive it all, it's about 2 weeks
Okay.
from there.
And what's happening with those panels while they're sitting on the roof?
Nothing. They're just
So the power, they're
inactive.
generating power, it's going nowhere.
going nowhere.
Even if you have a battery, it's just going nowhere.
Yeah, we're not allowed to turn it on until we get permission.
Okay, so literally it's just sucking up, it's making electricity that's just going nowhere.
Dissipating in the form of heat. The electrons aren't flowing, so they're not flowing
Okay, so
until
you don't
that
have
inverter.
anything on. It's,
Right.
It's up there, but nothing's on.
Right. So the potential's there, right? The inverters are off,
Right.
so none of that current is flowing.
Okay.
So until that current flows, everything else is just dissipated
Got
into
it.
heat.
So there's literally a moment where you say, okay, we're going live, and you flip the
That's it.
switch.
Flip a switch. Yeah.
And that can be done, is that a manual device, or you have control of these devices from the web?
Both. So normally what we'll do is we'll leave the system off at one point, so at the disconnect outside.
Got it.
So if the homeowner feels comfortable, they can just go outside and flip the switch on.
Oh, so you show them, say, hey,
Yeah.
when we're ready to go live, just go throw this switch.
Exactly. And then we'll activate it on our end through their monitoring platform.
Got it.
So they'll actually be able to see on their phone or computer, desktop, whatever, live production data.
Okay, so that was my next question. So now we're online. We've got our inspections. We flipped the switch. Now we're producing electricity. So what is my interface? Do I know that it's working? Is this an app on my phone? Is it a login? How does that work?
Yeah, so there's an app on your phone with a login to the monitoring platform.
Okay.
And the systems that we use, you can actually see on the modular level. So
So each module is telling you a story.
exactly. So
Okay.
you're going to be able to see production on what each module is actually producing.
So you'll know if a panel starts going bad. You know
Yes.
you have one panel going bad versus
Yep.
the whole system.
Yep. Or it could be some shading, but
Yeah, whatever.
Normally.
Yeah. Hey,
Yep.
that tree's really, we need to do something with that limb because it's
Yep.
blocking the sun.
Yep. Exactly. And then from there, you're going to be able to manipulate that data by the hour, the minute, the day, the week, the month, the year. It's a really it's a good way for the customer to be a little bit more like energy conscious,
Yeah.
right? So they can actually see, hey,
Sure.
I produced this. And what's nice is pretty much like all of our systems come with consumption CTs. So not only can they see production, but they're going to be able to monitor real time what they're actually using.
Ah, okay.
And that's kind of just like a little value add on.
Yeah, yeah. So you can say, hey, Johnny, turn off your lights. See, it just went down.
Yeah. Yep.
Interesting.
Exactly.
Okay, so real-time, and that's like instantaneous, that
Yeah.
feedback?
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, it's about a 5-minute data lag.
Yeah, but I'm saying like it's real-time,
yes.
right? It's just got to go and get to you, but it's not 2 hours. It's
Exactly.
5-10 minutes.
So there's no surprises either. You can open your app and say, hey, I know the end of the month is coming up. I got my electric bill that's coming in. You're going to be able to see what did I consume, what did I generate, and kind of get an idea of
Okay.
what your bill's going to be.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's just giving back this form of control.
Yeah. Now you're monitoring that as well for the customer?
Yes, we do. So that is part of the extra value of having my company install for you is that I'm actively looking at these systems.
Okay. And you have triggers on there that'll alert you by email or text to
Yep.
say, hey, Mr. and Mrs. Smith's panel, all of a sudden their production went down 30%. What's going on?
Yep, we're going to be able to see that. And actually, I can do some of the diagnostic work remotely.
Really?
Yeah. Yep. So I can see, real-time voltages or current. See, kind of get an idea of what errors, they are. So
Okay.
it's
Now, one thing and again, I've never had solar on my house, just full disclosure, right? One thing I'm always curious about is we get a big snowfall, and there's a foot of snow on the roof, and the panels are covered. Now what?
well, a foot of snow. It's going to take a while for that. I mean, it all depends on the pitch of your roof too.
Okay.
If you have a really steep pitch,
Yeah.
as soon as that sun comes out, it's
gonna
going to
come
heat
on.
those panels up, and that snow is going to come
so
down.
those clear pretty quickly.
Yeah. Yep. If you have a lower pitch roof, then it's going to take a little bit more time for that snow to melt.
Okay.
But the panels will generate electricity with, if you have like 2 to 3 inches of snow on there,
Yeah.
they'll still
Really? Still make
produce
a little
power.
electricity?
Yeah. Yep. Same on cloudy days.
Yeah.
They'll still produce about.
Now, is there ever a point where, like, do I need to clean my panels? Does someone need to go up there and clean the glass?
So not yearly. I would recommend right when you hit like that 5 to 7 year mark.
Okay.
A lot of sediment builds up
Sure.
on like the corners of the modules,
Yeah.
and they can start to affect production. But it depends. If we have a lot of rain, it's the rain is usually enough to keep them clean.
Okay.
In those first few
Interesting.
years, yeah.
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 But I mean, if you were someone that wanted to really maximize your output, it's probably something you want to have cleaned 3, 4, 5 years, every 3, 4, 5 years.
Yeah. Because like I said, that sediment really builds up,
Okay.
and the pollen lately has just been
Yeah. Well,
really bad.
That's spring. Right?
yeah.
So now I have my system. I'm up and running. I'm 3 years into it. I call you up and say, hey, Brett, my numbers are down. Why are my numbers down? And you look out on your end and you say, well, I don't know. I need to come. What does that look like? You come out, take a look if you can't figure it out remotely? Like, what does that look like?
Yeah, so we'll try to do as much remote diagnostic as we can. So we'll try to collect as much data as we can. If we can resolve the issue remotely, we certainly will. Otherwise, we'll dispatch a truck, and we'll send a technician on site. And I offer a pretty comprehensive warranty. So if it's a workmanship thing, we offer 10-year workmanship warranty, so that would be covered by us. And there's a manufacturer warranty as well.
Okay. Yeah, so let's talk about warranty. What is the standard warranty for you versus your competitors, and what does that look like?
Well, so this is where choosing the right contractor really matters, right? Because you can go with any fly-by-night solar company and they're going to tell you 5, 10, 20, 25-year lifetime warranty, whatever, and then they go out of business,
Yeah.
The next year.
Right.
In fact, there were over 100 solar companies that went out of business last year, nationally.
Okay. Gone.
Gone, bankrupt,
Right.
belly up. And that leaves a lot of customers with these legacy systems that
Right.
they don't know how to service.
Right.
So choosing the right partner to really, install the solar is going to make all the difference. And, I can confidently say that I will be around for the next 20, 25 years. I mean, I'm only 35. I plan on being in business for, 20, 25 years, at least. So you have a lifetime partner with me. Not to mention, my business isn't as susceptible to cash flow issues like these other solar
Sure.
companies, because they kind of ebb and flow with the incentives.
Yeah.
Whereas I just have a baseline of electrical work.
Got it.
At the end of the day, where if it has a wire, like we install it. So I'm going to be around. And what's nice about my company is, one, you're going to call me or text me. More than likely, I'm going to, you know where my office is.
Right.
And, I focus on customer service. I always get back to my customers within, a few hours of them reaching out to me. Or
Sure.
it's just the way that I've built my company.
Right.
So really around that customer service. But to your question about warranties, I offer a 10-year workmanship warranty. So anything that we install is going to be defect-free for 10 years. And then there's a 25-year warranty with the panels. So there's a linear performance warranty, meaning it's only going to degrade so much to a certain point, and then it'll stop
So
degrading.
you give your customers to say, at day 1 the panel's 100%. At day 25 it's going to be 70%. We know what that degradation is going to be just from wear and tear. If it goes below that threshold, they will what? Replace the panels?
Correct.
Okay. And so let's talk about panels. So where how do you decide what manufacturers you're working with? Because this is a big commitment, right, from a homeowner, right? So they want to make sure they're getting good panels.
Yep.
And I wouldn't know the difference. I look at 2 solar panels; they look identical to me.
Right.
Right. How do I know what I'm getting?
Exactly. So these are all like really important questions to ask as part of, as a consumer, you should be educating yourself too, right? You should want to research this, because it's a big investment,
Sure.
right? So you should do a little bit of research online to kind of figure out what the different types of panels are. But I can tell you that what we spec is what I call the Cadillac of residential systems.
Got it.
Tier 1, top quality modules, top tier microinverters or string inverters that have, full 25-year warranties. So not all solar is created equal.
No.
And it's really important that people understand.
Yeah, and they wouldn't know looking at the panel. They both look the same, really.
And that's it.
I mean, your eye, you know the difference, but the
Mm-hmm.
average person like myself looking at that panel, like, yep, it's a solar panel, yep, it's a solar panel.
Exactly.
And until you get into the guts of it, then you know what to look for.
Yep.
Interesting. So again, it goes right back to you need to be dealing with someone you know and trust versus just some guy knocking on your door saying, hey, we've got a deal this month, we're going to give you a free refrigerator if you buy solar panels or
Right.
whatever it is.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
So, we do have a couple of different packages. If someone prefers a more premium module, we can offer that. I always lead off with a premium module,
Sure.
though, because it's just a better, you're better off paying a little bit of extra money now.
Right. Yeah, because the cost of the equipment and the labor is only going to go up over
Right.
the next X amount of years.
And we're talking about a 25-year lifespan.
Right, long time.
Long time.
Big commitment.
Yeah. So, you're going to want to choose equipment and these products that are going to last. And going back to that choosing the right partner, we're seeing solar systems that are just slapped together that are failing with under 10 years.
What does failure mean? What does that look like? How do they fail?
So basically, how can I put this?
I'm going to take a drink of water while you think.
Oh, this is intense.
How are we doing, Kevin?
Doing good, man.
Doing good?
Rocking.
So what does failure look like? How do you know when a system's failed? Is it not producing enough electricity? Is it falling off the roof? Is it all the above?
All the above. Worst case scenario, it falls off the roof. But mostly it's going to be just zero production.
Okay.
Or half production. Some strings are going to be out. There's going to be errors on the inverter.
Yeah.
You're going to have, like for example, if the wire management under the array is not properly done, now you have these wires that are dangling on your roof.
Yeah.
Shingles are very abrasive. They start to wear
Ah.
away at that insulation,
Yeah.
which eventually leads to ground faults.
Yeah. Exposed wires.
And exposed
shorts,
wires and all of
fires.
this. Yes. Well, there's a lot of protective mechanisms that are built into these inverters now. But yeah, I mean, there's that risk of fire, worst case scenario. But
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it does happen. I mean, I've fixed a few jobs where there was fires on roofs.
yeah,
So, anything mechanical will break eventually at some point, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, and that's why it's important to work with a quality installer using quality products because you're going to minimize that risk,
exactly.
right? And these, like you said, these fly-by-night companies, they're installing panels from who knows where,
Mm-hmm.
and most likely 5 years from now, you won't be able to get parts for them,
Right.
or those parts will be obsolete and or illegal now to work on. I'm sure that's happened already.
Oh yeah. I mean, just the installation methods that we've seen. Like some wires on the roof.
Yeah, no, I've seen them with conduits like running down the front of the
Oh
house.
yeah, it's just it's gross. There's just this gold rush when solar first hit the
Yeah,
market,
yeah.
and it's just everybody was getting into it, and just
Yeah.
the work that was being done was so shoddy.
Yeah.
That's a big thing with my company too, is aesthetics.
Oh,
You
100%.
want something that's going to look nice.
Yeah. So let's pivot to batteries. So now we're going to talk about batteries. So we've decided we want a battery. What other brand batteries are there besides Tesla? I don't even know.
So the two top ones that we're installing right now is the Tesla Powerwall and Enphase.
End phase?
Enphase. Yep.
How you spelling that?
ENPH.
Oh, Enphase.
Yep, Enphase.
Okay.
Yep.
In phase. Yeah.
So
Oh, EN.
EN.
End phase. Tough name.
PHASE.
Yeah, they need to fix that name. If you're listening, fix your name.
So those are the two top batteries that we're installing in residential markets right now.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
And more or less created equal, or?
Yeah, it's kind of interesting. The Tesla batteries are going to be a huge market disruptor. The price point is very, very competitive, much cheaper than the Enphase product.
Okay.
Yeah. So, but you're kind of trading customer service in terms of Tesla. Tesla just has like really terrible customer service.
Interesting.
Yeah, like
So Elon, if you're listening, you need to fix your battery customer service.
yeah. Whereas Enphase just has like really, really good customer service. If we have an issue, we can call up customer support and technical support and kind of help us diagnose
Interesting.
the issue. Yeah.
Okay. So the price point for the Tesla panels, so output is in capacity is about the same between
Yeah.
the two?
Yeah, they're roughly about the same.
Okay.
It's a little bit different, like technology,
You're right.
but they're roughly about the same.
And these are lithium batteries?
Yes.
Okay, so they're both the same technology, maybe just the electronics and the interface is a little different. And these have their own Wi-Fi connection where you have your own app to see what my Tesla battery is doing, right? So beyond the solar, so we have the solar, we're looking at the solar, we also have another app where we can check our battery, or are those integrated?
The same.
Okay, so it's
Yeah.
all one dashboard.
Yeah, we usually try to keep the same interface.
Right, keep it simple.
Yeah.
Right,
Yeah,
okay.
you don't want multiple apps for multiple.
So, and then I have been places, and again, this is my limited knowledge, right? Because I have not messed around with much of this, other than fixing some houses for issues that were caused by other people. I've seen them stacked. So you have like the Tesla panels are stacked. They'd be like 1, 2, 3 stacked on each other.
Yep.
What is that? Why are they stacked?
Ease of installation. That's all that it is.
Okay,
It's
but that's how many batteries that my house can support or my panel can support. Like that's a calculation as well.
That's
correct?
correct. Yeah. So with batteries, it's important. So, like with solar, we look at your electric bill and we base it off of usage. With battery, we sized it based on the load.
Okay.
What do you want to run?
All right. And
Right.
again, we can pick and choose. You say, I want my refrigerator to run. I want my TV to run. I want my, if I have well water, I want my well pump to
Right.
run, and my heater to run. Other than that, I don't care, and I want to make my batteries last as long as I can.
Right, exactly. And so that's another discussion that we'll have where, okay, where are you on the grid? Do you lose power a lot?
Got it.
How long do you lose power for?
Right.
Right. So, and then what do you want to power? So we'll get a list of loads, and then from there, we'll figure out what the total wattage would be for the day, and then we go off of what's called days of autonomy. Right. So how many days do you lose power typically? And then we'll size the battery based on that.
Now, crazy question. I'm not interested in solar, but I want battery backup.
You can do that.
Okay, so I don't need solar to buy batteries from you.
No.
I can call you up and say, hey, I don't want a fossil fuel generator, but I want to have a little redundancy in my house. I want to have a little independence. So can you come install 1, 2, whatever batteries for me and tell me how long it's going to last?
Yep.
Now, how does the financing of that work? Is there any credits for that? How does that
Yeah,
work?
so Mass Save has a 0% interest loan for batteries. And the utility has a program called Connected Solutions.
Yeah.
So if you allow the utility to dispatch your battery when they need it during peak demand hours,
Okay.
they will pay you for that energy.
Really?
Yeah.
So you
Yep.
could have your own little battery production department that's when they can dial in, if you will, to
Yep.
your battery and say, give me all the juice.
Yes. Yep, we have, we need some more capacity in this area on this
Yeah.
circuit. You're in the area. They'll hit a button which sends a signal out to your battery. Your battery discharges. They pay you for the electricity.
Wow.
Yep.
So they're actually developing a network of little micro producers inside the infrastructure
Yes.
to get that capacity.
Yep, so that's called distributed generation, and it's really important for grid resiliency, where you're
Wow.
not relying on, one substation to power
Sure.
multiple
Yeah,
neighborhoods.
makes
You
sense.
actually have on-site
Right.
power generation and backup power. Yeah, it's pretty neat.
Wow. Yeah, that's I didn't even think of that. So so then let's turn our focus to electric vehicles. So now we have our solar on the roof, we have our batteries in the house, and we have an electric car. Doesn't matter the brand. I have electric pickup. You have one, obviously. So I want to charge my electric vehicle with the power that's been produced by my panels. How does that work?
So, again, I'll go back to, sizing the system correctly,
Sure.
right? So what type of car, what type of EV are you driving? and how
Right,
many
so-
miles are you driving.
Right, so if I have a little cruise, one of those little ones, it's not gonna use as much power as a lightning pickup, obviously.
Correct. So
Right.
there's a kilowatt hour to
Okay,
efficient.
and I only commute 15 minutes back and forth, and I go to the grocery store versus I'm all driving around all day.
Exactly. Right. Like my wife has an electric car. She drives to Randolph. She drives to Boston every single day. I need like basically a 10 kW solar array just
Just to feed that car.
just to support that car.
Okay,
Whereas somebody who drives a third of that is only going to need, a 3 kW. So again, it goes back to what the usage patterns are, having that discussion, consulting the client, accordingly, and making sure that we understand.
but how do we put some flexibility in it? Because obviously people's lives change, right? So this month, I have a job over here and I only have to drive 10 minutes and my company got sold or my job got eliminated or whatever it is, or I changed jobs, I got a big offer and I want to move up and I got a new position and now it's a half an hour away and I call you up and say, hey, I've just bought a brand new Lightning pickup and now I'm driving 35, 50 miles, whatever it is, one way, and I need to get back and forth, and my system was installed based on my, my little car that I had, whatever it is, a Cruise.
Yep.
And now I need, say, twice the power. What do you do then? Do you add a battery? I mean, what do you do?
Well, in that case, we talk about maybe adding some more solar,
Okay.
adding some more panels on your roof. So,
But is the generation of the power, like my car's not there during the day, and that's when the sun's shining, so the power goes into the grid and then I get the power back from the grid? So
Yeah.
it's not actually going in directly into my car.
so when you have a load, the solar is going to prioritize the load as opposed to going out to the grid. And the inverters are what really regulates that.
Okay.
So they're always keeping the voltage just slightly higher than the grid voltage.
Got
So you
it.
can think of it as like pressure.
Yeah.
So it's gonna go to the load first. But if you're not charging during the day, when the sun's out, or you're not doing laundry or any of these other like really energy intense activities, you're going to be banking credits through net metering.
Got it.
So,
So the power went out, and then you essentially pull it back at night to charge your battery.
yeah.
But you got quote unquote paid to put it out. You got credits to put it out, and now you're buying it back as negative credits when you put it back in your car.
Yeah, it's just basically like a one-for-one
Got it.
swap.
Right, and the goal is to balance that so that at
Exactly.
the end of the month you don't get a bill.
Well, yeah, it's actually over 12 months. So it's super important to note that when you look
Okay,
at
so there's some months where you have to write a check, and then other months where you don't have to.
exactly. So what you want to do, what we try to do, is offset it 100% over the course of 12 months.
Okay, so that's the benchmark. You want
Yeah.
to say over a year we're going to make this neutral.
Exactly. Yeah, because your January, February, March,
You're going to
March,
get killed.
yeah, the solar production is not that high.
Right.
But April, May, June, July, August, September, October, like all these months.
So you're banking all those credits,
Yeah.
and then you're pulling those down
Exactly.
in the winter months.
To offset those winter months. Yep.
Interesting.
Yep.
All right, so let's pivot. So what did I forget to ask you about all that? Anything?
No.
Okay, so let's pivot now. Let's talk about my favorite subject of the day is accessory dwelling units.
Okay.
Okay?
Yep.
So accessory dwelling units, ADUs, right? So have a bunch of them under construction right now. Obviously, under the current building and electrical code, we need to future-proof them for electricity, right? So, or solar, excuse me. So we're putting a conduit in from the basement, or in our case, a lot of times the crawl space, from the crawl space up to the attic, so that it's ready to go for solar on the roof, so we don't have a big conduit hanging off the side of our house,
Yep.
right? And we're also having to run a cable out for a future electrical car charger and put that on the outside corner of the building somewhere near where the car would possibly park. So that's the extent of the future proofing, right? So, so the same process for an accessory dwelling unit is going to start from site survey. All that's going to be exactly the same, even though it's just a smaller house.
Right.
That same process is going to
Same
happen.
process. Yep.
Okay. Now, how much room? Now, obviously, the biggest problem in an ADU is we're limited generally, these are general comments, to about 900 square feet,
Mm-hmm.
right? So how much room does your equipment take up? No battery.
Mm-hmm.
How much extra room does that take up, that equipment? Is it outside the building? Is it inside the building?
It can be in both. So you need a disconnect outside for the
Okay.
utility. So you're standard 60 amp
Yep.
knife style disconnect, about 18 inches, 12 inches wide.
And that's on the exterior.
That's on the exterior.
That has to be there by code.
Has to be there by code,
So
exactly.
they can walk up and turn it off.
Yep. Depending on the interconnection method that we're doing, either line side tap, if we choose a line side tap because there's a generator on site or we have to get ahead of the main breaker, there's going to be another disconnect inside. And then there's going to be a PV combiner panel, which is essentially just another electrical panel.
Okay.
And, so it's roughly about, again, like 18 inches by, 2 feet tall.
So like a standard electrical panel.
Yeah, and that's it.
But so we would need our electrical panel and that panel.
Yep.
And that has to be inside the house.
Well, it can go outside.
Okay, so that can go outside.
The PV combiner can go outside.
Right. Because have a bunch of these under construction, haven't built a few spaces at a premium. We need the panel in a place where you have 3 feet in front of it by electrical code.
Yep.
And it's not always that easy to find.
Right.
Right,
Yeah.
in a smaller structure. So,
Yeah, so we would we'd recommend putting it on the exterior of the building.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so they do make, weatherproof panels that can go on the outside. Right.
Yep.
And so do we have a way to make that look so it's not so industrial? Can we put that in a cabinet? Can it go in a cabinet?
It's actually really it looks really nice. Like the cabinet that the combiner's in, it's already built for
so
aesthetics.
it's not a hideous looking
No, not at all.
thing on the side of the building.
Yeah.
Okay.
Not at all.
And can we paint it to match the siding? Do you know if that's possible?
Yeah, you can paint it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good. So I have a typical 900 square foot unit. It's got a 6 pitch on the roof. The roof's probably 40 feet long. Rafter's going to be about 14 feet. And we're smart about it, and we don't put anything in your way. So the vent panel, the vent for the plumbing is out of the way. Can you cover most of that roof? Like, does that make sense?
It does. Yeah, it does make sense.
So if we're thinking about solar from the get-go on an ADU, and we're not site limited, we may want to turn that structure or design the roof so that slope is facing mostly south.
Absolutely. I mean, I always would recommend that, solar doesn't become an afterthought. It's part of the design process.
Understood.
And if you can face that roof south, that's going to be your
All right,
best.
so that's a question. So is it like, if this is the roof, right? If this is the roof, do we want do we want this to be south, like dead south?
Yeah, that's the best.
Okay.
That's the
So
best.
if the ridge is this way, so the ridge would be east to west, and that would put the slope
Yeah.
south, dead south.
Yeah, so if you put
That's ideal.
yes, that's ideal.
Yeah.
But that being said, you're not limited by just the south-facing.
I
roof.
understand.
Yeah.
Right, but that's the ideal scenario.
Yes.
So if we have a site where we're not constrained by setbacks and other things and aesthetics, and we have the ability to turn it and get it lined up exactly due south, that's the perfect scenario.
That's the way to go, yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely. Yep.
Right.
So in terms of filling the roof, we are limited to how much solar we can put on the roof because of fire setbacks. I have to provide the firefighters with a 3-foot pathway, 2 of them.
Okay. So you'd have to stay in 3 feet from each end
On at least one side.
on one side.
At least one side.
So it can't be. So it would be off. It would be off center. So for people that love aesthetic things that are
Yeah.
lined up even, they're gonna probably be like, "Oh, I don't like that."
Or they might lose some panels. Or, we could give them that 3 foot on both.
Okay. So
center
we're
and
gonna
as long as
severely
we-
limit the amount of. We're gonna lose a lot of
We
kilowatt.
We
doing that.
could, yeah. So again, this is like balancing
Yeah,
the
the
design
size.
with the code.
Yeah.
Um,
Now, a lot of, and again, this is a sidebar, right? So up until 3-4 weeks ago on ADUs, we were 100% limited to all electric, right? And so they've changed the energy code to exempt ADUs from the current HERS rating, and now they've increased the HERS to back to the old code, which is 55 all electric, 52 mixed fuel, right? So now with a 52 rating, we can have mixed fuel. So let's pretend, and we're going to go through some scenarios. So let's pretend I'm a person that wants an all-electric ADU, right? On average, they're pulling about 120 amps total with everything running. You know, dryer running, electric stove running, you know, heat pump running, all those things. Can we actually make enough power on that roof to support that load on a small structure like that?
Yeah, you can. Yep.
And if we chose to do batteries, those obviously have to be accessible. Can they be on the outside? Can the batteries be on the outside?
They can be on the exterior of the building now.
Okay.
The new batteries that Tesla actually just came out with, and same with Enphase. They're rated to go outdoors.
Okay. So we can literally, we don't have to sacrifice any interior space to do this system.
Right.
We just obviously want to place it on the outside where it's not staring at you when you drive up.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. So we've got 4 sides. We just got to pick our poison and say this is the side that everything's going to go on. Right.
Yeah, especially like you said, if you have a 40-foot long roof, there's plenty of surface area there, and it's due south. Yeah, it's.
So we could make a net neutral ADU then at that point.
You could. Yeah.
Okay. And now we've decided, you know what? I really love my gas stove. I love my gas dryer, but I'm going to do a heat pump because I love the efficiency and it gets me my AC and the cost benefit analysis and all that. So I have a gas stove, I have a gas dryer, but I have a heat pump, obviously all my lights, electronics. Now my system obviously can be smaller, right? So we're just going to size that appropriately based on that load.
Yes. So it's difficult to size a system 100% accurate to the usage pattern of the homeowner because
you got to do your best guess.
You got to do your best. So what I usually tell builders is, here's how much solar I can put on that roof. Here's what I estimate this can do, and here's what, based on the appliances that you gave me and the square footage, you know, if, for example, they had the, you know, I'll give like specific examples. If the heating and cooling is on a certain temperature, right? Because also too, if you're building a home on the Cape versus you're building a home that's a little bit, you know, not on the coastline, you're not going to have as high of an AC draw.
Right.
So all these factors, right, that go into play. Again, going back to that whole like being thorough about that, about the design and that conversation.
Right, and if you know your mother's moving into it and she loves her heat at 80 degrees, you have to. It's a different conversation.
It's a totally different conversation, right? And I say that all the time. It's like, you know, if you got every person's usage patterns are going to be different.
Right.
So, but what you can do is install these systems and say, hey, this system is going to generate, you know, 6,000, 8,000 kilowatt hours annually. Here's what it's going to save you. So at the end of the day, you're still going to save money.
Okay.
And it's also a way to protect yourself from rising energy costs and, you know, the volatility of these energy bills and all of that. So, and which is super important for someone who, you know, anybody who's doing an ADU is usually for their retired parents, or maybe they have a young adult that they need to take care of.
Yeah.
And, you know, controlling those costs is important to them. So, you know,
right, and if we're financing the ADU, then obviously we can build the financing in for the additional cost of the solar system, and own it, versus renting it from a provider.
Yeah.
So let's pivot back again. So now I've got my solar system. I've lived in my house for 8 years. I own the system. You installed it. And you know what, my family's grown, I want to move to a new house, I don't have room to remodel, or I don't want to remodel, or my job moved away, whatever it is, and now I want to sell my house. So what does that look like when I go to sell the house? It's just a standard real estate transaction. They buy the house with the solar installed, and they just close on it, and there's no extra paperwork.
That's it.
Okay.
That's it. When you own the system, you can actually
own the system,
increase the value of your property.
Yeah, because you're going to show the utility bills, and you know, on average we spend $40 a month on electricity.
Yep.
So you know, you have an extra $600 to $800 a month that you can spend on the house other places.
Exactly. Because
we've already taken care of the electrical costs.
Yep. So you'll have to transfer the site to them, to the buyer.
Sure.
Through, you know, on the monitoring app.
Right.
But outside of that,
there's no cost to that transfer. It's just the paperwork.
Yeah, it's just paperwork.
Okay. Now versus if they've leased that system from somebody, what does that look like when they go to sell their house?
So you're going to be basically taking the solar company with you to the closing table. You got to transfer that contract to the buyer.
Okay, so the buyer's got to assume that liability that
Yes.
you took on 8 years ago
Yes.
for the remainder, or whatever it is, 20
Yep.
years or,
Yeah.
18 years that's left on the lease.
I've seen some deals fall through because of it. When
Sure.
The buyer doesn't want to enter into a lease
Right.
agreement with this.
Yeah,
lease
because they
owner.
didn't agree to that up front.
Exactly. So it can be problematic, and that's another conversation that I have. If the customer's has had a conversation with a national solar company and they want to do this PPA because of the zero down, they don't have the money, I always ask them, well, are you planning on selling the home?
Right.
Because that's something that they're not taking into consideration, right?
Right.
And it's like, well, yeah, maybe in like 8 to 10 years I'm considering it. And it's like, well, you're only going to be halfway through the lifespan of this contract.
Right, and you're still on the hook for it.
And you're still on the hook.
Right, it's like buying a timeshare.
Yeah. So
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
like you really have to know what you're signing up for.
Right, and it goes right back full circle to make sure you're dealing with a company that's going to treat you honestly and ethically,
Yep.
and tell you all the pluses and minuses, and give you the best system for your lifestyle at that time. But also say, hey, let's have a conversation. Are you thinking about adding an electric car? Are you thinking about having more people live in the house, whatever that looks like, more kids, or your parent, or you're adding an ADU, or whatever that is,
Yep.
right? All that conversation has to go into future-proofing that install that you're going to own, so that 5 years from now, when I call you and say, hey, Brett, you know what, I just bought an electric pickup, you say, no problem. Remember, we had that conversation 5 years ago. We're going to do this, we're going to do this, we're going to do this. We don't have to rip anything out, but we do need to add these components in order to support that electric vehicle.
Yeah, exactly. Yep.
Right. Fantastic. Well, that was good. Any final thoughts, tips and tricks for consumers that they should know, why they should work with BD Electric? Let's talk about all that stuff.
Yeah, so I think at the end of the day, you want to find someone or a company that really understands the bigger picture. Someone who has been in the industry, knows the ins and outs of incentives and energy usage and utility interconnection, all of these moving parts, and not just someone who is just trying to sell, right? Not somebody who's is just actually somebody who's on site, right? And somebody who has that technical expertise.
Awesome. Well, it's been great to have you in here today.
Thanks, Buzz.
I learned a lot. There was a lot of things I didn't know about solar, so I learned a lot. I hope the viewers learned a lot,
Yep.
and I appreciate you having in.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
All right, we'll
Appreciate
see
it.
you on the next one.
All right.